Hello everyone and welcome to my Death Stranding final thoughts review, spoiler cast, discussion, whatever you want to call it. I just a few days ago now beat Death Stranding. It's going to be quite laid back, relaxed. I haven't really got a lot of structure planned for this one. So initially, just very quickly, non-spoiler, is Death Stranding good or not? Yes, I think Death Stranding is a good game. And I'm not going to spend any time explaining mechanics or anything like that throughout this review because at the end of the day, I expect that if you're listening to this, you've either beaten the game or have a comprehensive understanding of what the game is anyway. So I'm not going to go out explaining mechanics. I think Death Stranding is a really good game. I think Hideo Kojima did an excellent job, and his team over at Kojima Productions created something quite impressive with Death Stranding. It's not without its faults, and I'll obviously get into those, but overall I think it is a great experience that I think if you own a PS4 and you're interested in trying something different, in tackling a game that perhaps you've never played something like this before, then I recommend giving it a shot for sure. But just be aware that you're getting into something quite unique and distinctive. Because at its core, I do think Death Stranding can be easily described as Hideo Kojima doing some really artsy stuff with a really big budget, which is pretty cool if you ask me. So let's get into my kind of list of pros and cons as we go down here. So obviously with this spoiler-filled discussion, let's get into what I think is absolutely the game's strongest point, and that is its story, its characters, and everything to do with the narrative side of things. I thought Death Stranding's story was really excellent, and I was worried that I wasn't going to feel that way. Obviously, Kojima has a very distinct style of making games that everyone knows about, you know. I personally never played any other Kojima game other than this one, but people know what they're getting into when you talk about a Kojima story. And to some degree, that was kind of concerning for me, especially when you couple that with the fact that throughout the trailers and the years of hype leading up to this game's release, it's always looked so bizarre in trailers. You know, you've seen the most crazy random crap going on in these trailers. You've got no idea what you're looking at half the time. You see beaches and you see flying fish and you see Mads Mikkelsen rising out of frickin' tar as a World War II soldier. A lot of it leading up to release made no sense. People obviously had no idea what the game was right up until very close to launch. And I think that perception of the game really could have hurt the narrative, and I think that Kojima could have, and maybe even to some degree was expected to, go in a direction with the story that was kind of too pretentious and too symbolic, if that makes any sense. I feel like it could have been really easy for him to kind of deliver us with a narrative full of metaphors and symbolism and wacky visuals, but at the end of the day, doesn't really make a lot of sense. Sure, it could have been interpreted in different ways and things like that, but I was concerned that the story wasn't going to make a lot of sense and it was just going to be a bunch of artsy nonsense. Luckily, while there is a lot of symbolism and weird crap going on for sure, no one's going to deny that, the story is complete. I'm so glad to say that. I don't think we'll ever get a sequel to this game, and I think that's great. The story is very much self-contained, it very much works by itself, and it makes sense. And that might be the craziest thing of all. People thinking, oh my god, Death Stranding, this shit makes no sense. I don't know, I thought it made a ton of sense, and I was surprised by that, to be honest. Sure, there's some kind of weird moments, which I'll get into later. The game's weird. The story is weird, but it nonetheless makes sense. Now, this is the part where I'm going full spoilers, so I mean, you've read the title, you know what to expect, so I don't really need to warn you any further. But anyway, I loved the ending of the game. I loved all the revelations concerning Mads Mikkelsen's character, Cliff. I thought that, well, quickly, we'll get into the performances very quickly because it's kind of a no-brainer, but all the performances from all the lead actors and all the characters, absolutely phenomenal. Mads was phenomenal. Norman Reedus as Sam, I mean, like, look, he's kind of a generic, bland, silent kind of protagonist, but that's kind of the point. So I think with that in mind, it really works and he does a good job. Fragile's character was really cool. All the performances were fantastic, and in that final scene where we get the flashback and the final reveal that Sam is Cliff's BB the whole time, I thought that was really clever. Sure, it does feel like a bit of a traditional plot twist, I guess, but I don't know, I thought it was really effective. Mads' performance, like I said, was great. Getting that cutscene finally after literally that final scene being teased for the entirety of the rest of the game. For 40 hours of playing Death Stranding, I got teasers of little snippets of Cliff popping up every now and again through our memory, and I thought it was really cool to finally get this huge long cutscene that really paid all that off. And I mean, I guess I'm starting right at the end here, but the final shot of the game with Sam walking out into the rain where the timefall no longer affects him, and obviously when you went on that last delivery to the incinerator with your BB with Lou, that was really fantastic because there were no BTs anymore, there was nothing around, and oh my god, BB's theme playing there, absolutely phenomenal. The score was phenomenal, the soundtrack by Low Roar and Silent Poets and some others, it was all phenomenal. The music in this game really stood out, it was exceptional, and I can't speak any more highly about BB's theme. God, that's such a good piece of music, dude. It's freaking phenomenal. But anyway, yeah, like I was saying, walking out into the rain and the timefall no longer affects Sam, really impactful stuff. Absolutely loved it. It ended really on quite a happy note and quite a positive note for Sam's character, and I thought that was really cool. That wasn't something I necessarily expected. Going in, I would have thought, hell, maybe this ending will lead into a sequel or something, but no, this felt very complete. I felt like I witnessed the end of Sam's story. Now that he has Louise, who BB was revealed to be a girl, I thought that was all fantastic. So the story really had some fantastic high points, especially towards the end for me. It wasn't without its kind of weird and bad moments in my opinion. Some of the dialogue is super cringeworthy, and there is one particular moment where, I believe it's towards the end of the game, in like episode 9 I think, where Sam and, what's-her-face, Amelie are talking to each other, and there's this referencing Mario and Princess Peach, and the dialogue's damn terrible. I'm sorry, it's terrible. It's fourth wall breaking in a bad way in my opinion, and I've seen people kind of try and defend it by saying like, oh, but that's just Kojima, that's just what Kojima does. And okay, that's fine, I respect that. That's Kojima's kind of style of storytelling. He does a lot of fourth wall breaking kind of stuff. It didn't work for me though, nonetheless. I'm sorry. Like, I don't care whether it's intentional or not intentional, or his style or not his style. It didn't work for me anyway. I thought it was pretty painful, honestly. It's pretty awkward. There's a few other moments like that, and those kind of weird moments, coupled with ridiculous exposition, it's kind of annoying. I understand, obviously, that in the first, 3 to 5 hours of the game, we're getting introduced to this world and the different terms that the characters are using, like BTs and BBs and timefall and all that stuff. I understand for introducing us into the game in that way that it makes sense to have a lot of exposition. So it's not the fact that there's a lot of exposition that bothers me, it's the fact I feel like I'm getting hit over the head with the same information constantly at a lot of different points. I was still getting dialogue explaining how mechanics work when I only had 5 hours left in the game. I'm like, I've played this game now for 35 hours and the menu is still telling me about, teaching me all about how these new different weapons work. It's bizarre. And God knows I didn't end up actually using the weapons barely at all, which I'll get into later in more of the negative section. But yeah, I think some of the exposition's way too much. Some of the dialogue is definitely way too much. The perfect example actually is when you're in the episode 5 chapter where you've got to reunite Mama with Lochner, her twin sister, and after you do that, I swear to God, like 5 different times in cutscenes, the character tells you the exact same thing. Me and Mama, we're the one same person now. The first time that happened, where it's like, okay, the 2 twin sisters have joined together in the one body, I was like, and they like explain that clearly to you, and I was like, oh, okay, fair enough, that's fine, cool. And then they proceed, like in the following 2 hours after that, to tell you 4 more times, oh, by the way, remember, we're one again, we're one person. I'm like, alright, calm down, Jesus, I understood the first time. That was a ridiculous circumstance, that one. But there weren't any characters for me that disappointed. Honestly, sure, Higgs's character as kind of the fake-out red herring villain was really cool. I thought he had a fantastic kind of aesthetic to him, a great design. I thought Troy Baker did a fantastic job with the performance. And sure, at the end of the day, he does just exist as a red herring. He doesn't really have any substantial worth to the plot. But, I don't know, I really enjoyed his on-screen presence nonetheless, and I really thought that his kind of final confrontation with Sam was exciting. The moment where you know, it turns into a one-on-one fist fight and the health bars pop up at the top of the screen. Sure, it's fourth wall breaking and it's kind of, it's nuts, honestly. It makes no sense within the context of the rest of the game, but it's fun, you know, it's kind of silly, and I think that's an example of Kojima's style actually working to benefit a moment in the game, to actually make that moment more memorable. Alright, let's get into the gameplay, because it's awesome, okay? It's not for everyone, which I know is what everyone keeps constantly saying. It's certainly, your casual gamers, your Call of Duty players or whatever, they're not going to like it. They're going to think, what the friggin' hell is this? Just walking around mountains, delivering packages? This shit sucks. I don't know, I thought it was really cool. It was relaxing. It was like nothing I'd ever played before, and it didn't hook me enough for me to want to go out and do every standard order that came up or anything like that. I mainly just mainlined the main story, but nonetheless, I really enjoyed the gameplay loop. The way that Kojima in this game was able to basically make walking an interesting and diverse game mechanic is remarkable. It's incredibly impressive. It's something that I don't believe any developer has ever achieved. In traditional open world games, you know, the traversal is the easy part, the part that no developer really thinks about too much, you know, you just get in your vehicle, get on your horse, you know, or just walk places and you just point the stick, you know, you move the analog stick and you just move, okay? That's not the interesting part. The interesting part is when you get to your location and you get into combat. But with the game, Kojima made what is traditionally, like I said, the boring part, the uninteresting part, what is interesting and what is the core mechanic of the game. I guess just don't write off the game because you think walking around mountains and hiking sounds boring in a video game. It's more than that, you know, that's underselling it. Because there's a lot of inventory management involved and picking and choosing what you're going to need to bring and what equipment is necessary based on the path that you plan out on your route. You know, it really is quite deep in that sense. And the overall aesthetic of the game is gorgeous. Kojima Productions' depiction of this version of a post-apocalyptic United States is gorgeous. It's absolutely stunning. The vehicles, though, they were a pain in the ass to use, especially the bike. Oh my god. You just couldn't frickin' drive anywhere without constantly banging into rocks and shit. It was super annoying to use, and I understand that might be the point because the game developers are trying to encourage you to build roads, which was a pretty satisfying thing, I must say. I personally built a pretty long section of road at one point, and that was super satisfying to be able to drive along that and efficiently make deliveries. That was awesome. So in that sense, maybe they made the vehicles deliberately annoying so it would encourage you to kind of build roads. But I don't know, personally, they were still annoying and I wasn't a big fan of them. And that's a good segue to, obviously, the social mechanics in the game, the construction side of everything, where you can leave signs for other players, obviously, and leave bridges and other buildings and all that kind of stuff. I thought that was genius. It was so awesome to be on a long hike, be running out of battery, be running out of whatever, you know, to be in a difficult position and to come across something another player had left in the world that just helped you in time. It was awesome. Seeing other players leave their generators around, their timefall shelters, and their zip lines especially, all that stuff was so amazing, dude. And I think even more so than gamifying walking, this is the biggest accomplishment of Death Stranding. Being able to make the player think in a way that they've never thought in a video game before, because that's exactly what happened to me. When I was going through Death Stranding and I had the option to leave things behind to help other players and to help myself as well on the journey, it made me think in a way I've never thought in a video game. It made me think, oh, if I left this point exactly here, then this could help perhaps someone else who's walking along here, you know? And that all really shines for me when it comes to the zip lines in particular, because can I just say, the zip lines are so goddamn satisfying to use. Being able to skip out on super long journeys by just zipping around the map, it's phenomenal, and it's just another perfect example of how these construction elements just help to make everyone's life easier. I would often come across other online zip lines left by other players that kind of half connected a route, but then I would, on my journey, place more zip lines, which would then allow me to easily zip back and forth between places, and doing that left me with such an awesome feeling. It left me with the feeling I think Kojima really wanted to leave the player with, and that concerns with everything being connected. Obviously, the game isn't very subtle with its message of connection and overcoming isolation and bringing everyone together, bringing people together. And the way that Kojima was able to explicitly state that message Not just through the story, not just through dialogue, not just through character arcs, etc., which certainly does occur throughout the game, but also through gameplay. It's a testament to his vision, it's a testament to the team for executing it incredibly successfully, and it's a testament to video games as a whole, honestly, and what they're capable of. There's no other medium out there at all. You can't do this in movies or TV or books or whatever that allows for a storyteller to convey their message and their beliefs through interaction, through player interaction, and through gameplay mechanics. And the way that all these online functionalities and these construction systems are all in greater service of the message and the narrative of Death Stranding, it's fantastic, dude. It's an absolutely incredible accomplishment. Okay, let's get on the negative side now, and I think the easiest place to start there is combat, because combat's absolutely trash in this game. Let's be real, it sucks, honestly, it's pretty bad. I guess what happens when you're a developer and you're building a game that is so not meant for combat, you're building a system that is all about traversal, and you try and insert combat into that traversal system. You try and, I guess, shoehorn in weapons and guns and all that kind of stuff into your game, and it doesn't turn out well for you. It's so obvious whenever you try and use combat or take any of that kind of action. It's so obvious that the game is not designed for it. It's by no means unplayable or anything like that. It's serviceable, but it's boring, it's uninteresting, it's kind of hard to control, it's clunky, and it left me just wanting to avoid it at all costs. Whenever you'd walk through the mule areas or have to traverse through the mule areas to get to a destination, you know, you can shoot them, you can take them out stealthily. There are many ways you can tackle those situations, and I always chose to just stealth through the place and avoid them. I did not want to deal with them at all, especially when there's just no incentive for me to have to deal with them. Because unfortunately, those areas, and the BT areas as well, they're permanent on the map, which just sucks. I really wish that if I took down a mule camp, if I took out everyone in the camp and looted their place, that it would go away. Or at least it would go away for an extended period of time. But that just doesn't happen, they just end up respawning, and that's a real shame. It left me with absolutely no reason to deal with these guys other than a few resources, which would be cool if I was interested in building roads for ages, but I'm just not into that, you know? So the combat's not fun, it's really clunky to use, and there's really honestly no incentive to taking part in it when it's optional to do so. However, in the times where you have to use combat, which is in the game's few boss fights, they're absolutely the worst sections of the game. The boss fights are really bad. They're honestly really bad. It's another example of it becoming really clear that the game's not designed for this kind of combat. All the major boss fights in the game consisted of huge BT characters, these really visually impressive things, and they just attack really slowly, they move really slowly, they're really easy to avoid, and they're really just giant bullet sponges, honestly. If you just kind of move around, avoiding their really slow attacks and stuff, and just constantly shoot them or throw grenades at them for ages, they're just gonna go down, that's it. They're boring, they're uninteresting, and it doesn't help that the shooting is just so imprecise, where I feel like I'm just constantly hitting walls with my bullets, and the game's aiming reticule isn't really accurate. I don't know, it's kind of all just an underwhelming feeling that I associate with that aspect of the game, honestly. It got so annoying for me that I ended up just turning the difficulty down to easy, which is something I don't normally do, but I did it because it became clear to me late in the game that these boss fights are just giant bullet sponges that move super slowly, and I'm like, well, honestly, if that's all these things are, I'd rather just give them less health and save me more hassle, honestly. So, yeah, that was quite an underwhelming experience for me dealing with those boss fights. And if this thing ever got a sequel, which, like I said, I don't think it will, but if it ever did, I really want to see an improvement in that aspect of the game for sure. So that's it. I think Death Stranding is a unique cinematic journey. You know, I really enjoy Death Stranding overall. I think it's probably going to end up being my game of the year, just because of how distinctive and unique it is, and I think this year has been pretty weak for games, at least for me personally, so it's not a must-play game, it's not a must-play experience, it's not a God of War, which is a game that I would recommend if you play games, play God of War for God's sake, you know? Death Stranding is not like, considering I've been looking forward to it for so long and we've known about it for so long, it's still kind of surreal to me that I've actually played and beaten the game already. I'm really glad with the experience I got overall. I thought it was a great game. It's got evident flaws, but at the same time it's a game that I'm not going to forget anytime soon. I think that's a testament to what Kojima was trying to achieve here. Alright, well I hope that wasn't too boring. I just went on a huge bloody ramble. God bless anyone who's still here and who's been able to bear me talking crap for so long. Alright, well, there you go. Death Stranding's over. This video's over. Yeah, alright. See ya.